Okay, hello, this is Christopher Reed. I'm going to go through my top 5 favorite directors of all time in all movies that I've seen. So, I've seen a lot of movies overall, but there's still a lot that I haven't seen. I've only seen a few movies by Federico Fellini, for example, like Eight and a Half and I don't know, The Knights of Cabiria or something. Some of them are really good. There's a lot of older movies I haven't seen. I haven't seen William Wyler's movies. I've only seen one movie by Ozu, like a Japanese director. So there's a lot I haven't seen, but I think I've seen enough that I can. The top 5 that I've picked, I want directors I'm very familiar with, and I really, really like their movies. So my number 5 best director of all time is Christopher Nolan. I think he's phenomenal. He hasn't made that many movies yet, about 8 or so. But on the Internet Movie Database, the IMDb or whatever, he's got, I think, all but one or two of his movies are there. So his first movie was Following, or I don't know if it counts as a feature film, because it's kind of, I think, independent. It's an interesting movie in black and white, but, Memento is a really original, really interesting movie that plays around with time and uses black and white and color very effectively. It's about, Guy Pearce has a memory problem where he can only remember things for a couple of minutes. What I think is great, the key to understanding that movie and appreciating it is to realize that Guy Pearce, his condition is just an exaggerated version of everyone. Everyone has difficulty remembering things from, we only have a limited memory, and yet we act very firmly and as if we know what we're doing. And we have systems. We have our phone and our text messages and Facebook and different ways that we remember things and keep track of things, but it's flawed. And this movie just really exaggerates the condition that all humans have, and then looks at the subtle things we do, where if we imperfectly record information, it can end up changing later. Or we get a tattoo to say, this is who I am, this is what I know, what I represent. And we lie to ourselves in different ways. Anyway, and we get abused. People take advantage of our weaknesses, and we end up telling people things and forgetting we've already told them. Everyone does that, just not to the same degree that this character does. Nolan is famous for the Batman trilogy or the Dark Knight trilogy. They're epic movies. I love them. I think they're heaps good. Batman Begins is like the best origin story of Batman. I think it's got just awesome action, really good cast. The Dark Knight is considered one of the greatest movies of all time, which I agree with. I think, and Heath Ledger's really, really good in it. But just something I want to say, I think some people they just say ignorant things like that movie's only famous because Heath Ledger passed away, it's very inappropriate, or that it made that much money. It made that much money because it's a great movie and it's a great performance. And I also think some people, like Heath Ledger's performance in that was really good. I really like it, and it influenced me a lot, and I became a Heath Ledger fan just from that. And I think the fact that he passed away is a separate thing, and it's very sad, and it's not really to do with that movie at all. And he also, I think people say, oh, it's only good because it's got the Joker in it. Batman Begins is also a very good movie, and so is The Dark Knight Rises. But the Joker is one of the most famous comic book villains of all time, and one of the most popular, and one of the most colorful and crazy. So the character is that kind of colorful, out there person. So whoever, if it's played well, it's going to be maybe more memorable than Batman. I think Christian Bale is really, really good in all 3 movies. It's just that his character is much more internalized and subtle, and it doesn't have, I think he plays it very well. He doesn't have like big moments of like being upset. He's thinking and feeling and trying. You can see how much he's struggling to figure out where does he draw the line. What are the principles? Because he really has one main principle: not to kill people. But other than that, it becomes very tricky. Do you just give people to the police, where the Joker is sort of making this point that the police are corrupt? And the Dark Knight has a lot of similarities with a movie called M, which is directed by Fritz Lang, I think. He would be another honorable mention who I don't quite put in my top five, but would be close. I haven't seen enough of his movies. Anyway, so Nolan also made The Dark Knight Rises, The Prestige, which is a really interesting two men that end up sort of, it's like a snake biting its own tail. They keep trying to outdo each other and second guess each other and betray each other, and it's just, it's a bit like an eye for an eye, except the problem is they each think that things are unfair, so they're just getting revenge, but then it just never ends. And that's got some really psychologically messed up stuff. Inception is a very original movie that gets into the mind in a way that I just don't think many movies have done. And I think sometimes people critique his movies, or they say they're pretentious. It's very ironic. One of the most pretentious reviews I've ever read was saying how Nolan was pretentious. I just found that ironic. And I think his movies are intelligent and they hold up really well to multiple viewings. A lot of them have echoed lines, like earlier in the movie, why do we fall? So that we can learn to pick ourselves up. And then that line comes again later in Batman Begins. Batman Begins has like maybe 6 of them. 6 lines that get repeated, but maybe by a different character in a different context. And I think it really works. It's a lot like a little motif in music or something, like an echo, but it's changed so it has a different meaning. Anyway, and Interstellar is a really, I think I've got it here, really like visionary movie. One of the most scientifically realistic movies that's ever been made. Just very bold. It's so, again, I think it's ironic that people pick it to critique the science when it explores things that just haven't been realistically done in movies ever. It's got an amazing visualization of a black hole, and it takes this, realistically portrays interstellar travel and relativity, like special relativity, general relativity, and it's a really great story. It's just very moving. Anyway, so I think he's deserving of being in the top 5. So my next director, number 4, is Stanley Kubrick, which he's considered a genius. Often people say that word for him. He's really interesting because he's not, he's sort of prolific, but he didn't make movies a lot. I think, I'm not an expert, but I think he had like big gaps in time between his movies. But it feels like up to 5 years, 6 years, 8 years. Early on, I think maybe he made more often. But the thing is, all of his movies are considered really good. So he's a bit similar to Nolan in that way. They don't make movies super often, but they make very bold, original movies that really get remembered, I think. And they both have really good cinematography. I've got 2001: A Space Odyssey. This is a really interesting movie that a lot of critics, I think, walked out at the time. Roger Ebert was one of the ones that really praised it straight away, seemed to get it and appreciate it. But as I said with The Empire Strikes Back, there's sort of like a wallpaper count. I think Kubrick's movies have a very high wallpaper count. The number of wallpapers you could get from each of his movies is very high. He's also, what's cool is he seemed to do like every genre once. So he did like horror with The Shining. That's got some very interesting, weird things, that surreal stuff without showing too much violence or gore. It's just kind of creepy. It's got a lot of slow shots where it's just, again, really nice sets and just slowly moving. It's got a good performance by Jack Nicholson. Here's Johnny, and there's a part where someone runs out of nowhere. I don't want to spoil it. There's the twins. There's Wedwam. I don't know. It's a movie that I didn't find scary, but I really respected it as very well done. There's a part with all this blood that's kind of surreal. And he made Full Metal Jacket. That's sort of a war movie. 2001: A Space Odyssey, a really sort of epic science fiction movie about evolution, or about humanity and our purpose, our future. It's just really thought-provoking and interesting, and it's got the famous HAL 9000. Daisy, I don't know the words. What else did he make? Eyes Wide Shut, which I guess explores sexuality, but in a way that a lot of movies have sexual references and sex scenes, but they don't. Very few analyze the psychology of sex or what it means to people and how they behave around it. That movie, I just thought was interesting. It sort of went in an area I just think hasn't been explored much. A lot of these movies I haven't seen in ages. Paths of Glory is sort of about war, but a very interesting movie, very highly regarded. One of my favorites is Doctor Strangelove, which I guess is sort of a comedy about the Cold War. I really love that movie, and Peter Sellers is really good in it. So, and there's some earlier Kubrick movies I haven't seen yet. I just need to catch up. So yeah, he's very meticulous. Apparently, he did lots of takes, which I don't know if that's a strength. Like, to me, a good director, you should be able to figure out what you want and adjust, rather than just making them do it heaps of times. But I don't know the details, because I think Nolan's pretty efficient. He's always under budget, or often under budget. He doesn't have like deleted scenes generally. He knows what he wants, and I think he gets, usually does 2 or 3 takes. He'll do more takes if necessary. I think like once or twice Heath Ledger thought, he was really in the moment. He wanted to do some more takes to really get something, so they did. And I remember an anecdote that Heath Ledger then went around and thanked cast members or crew sort of individually, just quietly saying thanks for staying back, so we can get that. And I think that makes a lot of sense. To be efficient and get what you want, but to, if there's a moment that's working where actor wants to try something, to go with it. Okay, so let's move on. My number 3 best director of all time, or favorite, is Akira Kurosawa, a Japanese film director. He's really awesome. I've now realized I actually have seen a fair few of his, but there's a lot I haven't seen. I've seen less than probably a third. But I've seen Shichinin no Samurai, this one, The Seven Samurai. Shichinin no Samurai. Shichinin means like 7 people of the samurai variety. It's an awesome movie. Very influential. That movie, The Magnificent Seven, is directly influenced or based on, it's the same thing basically. Even A Bug's Life has a similar plot, because the idea is there's like a sort of a town and there's bandits that are attacking or are a threat, sort of ongoing. So the samurai just sort of randomly ragteam of 7 samurai team up to help them. Sort of out of the goodness of their hearts, I guess, or I don't know. I don't think they really get paid, and they sort of teach the town to help themselves. So if you've seen A Bug's Life, it's similar. But it's interesting because I think Kurosawa was influenced a lot by early westerns, like, I don't know if it's Henry Ford. I'm getting confused. There's a guy whose last name is Ford, I think. Some of the movies like Stagecoach or something, maybe The Searchers, I'm not sure. But he then made Japanese movies about samurai, but they were really westerns. They were very influenced by westerns, like Yojimbo, maybe Shichinin no Samurai. But it's funny, I think in Japan he was considered un-Japanese, like not making Japanese movies. He was too Western, even though a lot of people, it's terrible that some people just can't watch black and white movies. They can't watch movies with subtitles. Anything foreign is, and yet it's ironic that he's too Japanese for some people, but for Japan he was not Japanese enough. Anyway, his movies are brilliant, and so some of his movies then influenced, like A Fistful of Dollars by Sergio Leone, and possibly the sequels were influenced pretty much directly based on Kurosawa's movies, Yojimbo, and then there's a sequel, Tsubaki Sanjuro or something, which I just remember really liking. Oh my god, it has a bit at the end, I shouldn't spoil, but just boldness, where it's just 2 people standing and they're still for so long with swords. And Seven Samurai is really moving. It really builds characters. You know, it does everything right. Even though it's in black and white, it really involves you and affects you. And it's got some very cool action sequences. I think it was one of the first movies to use slow motion. Let's see, what else did he make? He made a movie called Ran later on, which is, I think, the Japanese word for war or conflict, and it's in color and it's really visually interesting. I think apparently he may have painted some of the images he wanted for movies towards the end, and he's famous for using composition, a bit like, so if you look at this image, it's just me in the middle, but if you could have like the camera was here and you had my face, but you also had people in the background and other details, you can have say things in the foreground and the background, and combined in a way. You'd have shots where you wouldn't notice it if you're not paying attention, but when you notice as a film buff or someone interested in movies, you see there's like an image and you can see 10 different characters. He manages to find an angle and sit them in places where they all fit into the camera without it being too obvious, and it's just really cool because you can see what they're all thinking and feeling, behaving. He worked a lot with a guy called Toshiro Mifune, and he's just this awesome actor, has like so much energy. Yeah, I don't know, he does, instead of, I find a lot of actors will sort of look at who they're talking to and they're just talking to them and that's it, that's all it is. He used to do much more casual stuff like scratching his hair, and just seemed to be very casual. He'd even like pick his nose, and he'd do have weird sort of body language and gesture and just sit. It just made it seem like much more natural, and he'd just really feel things, and he'd get bored with what other characters were saying. I just found him so much more real than most other actors. Anyway, Kurosawa also made a movie called Rashomon, which has a story that ends up, something happened like a rape or a murder, or I can't remember, and then different people are telling their versions of what happened, but it doesn't match up. So it's a bit like The Usual Suspects, or I'm sure some other movies. It's again a very influential, very original idea that has gone on to, you know, there's so many iterations that people have directly, and the thing is, a lot of them you can argue are not as good as Rashomon, this original movie. I'm probably not quite saying it right. All right, let's move on. But Kurosawa is amazing. I really want to catch up. Oh, I got to mention he made The Hidden Fortress, another movie. Not, that wasn't even one of his like sort of great movies, but just another really cool movie, and that heavily influenced Star Wars. Just the stories, but that original movie, Hidden Fortress, is very cool. Toshiro Mifune is in it, and he's kind of like the Obi-Wan, I guess. At first, he just seems like a hermit, just an annoying guy that keeps laughing, but you find out he's a bit more significant than that. A bit like Obi-Wan is actually this really significant Jedi that was a very important person earlier on. And he also made a movie, Ikiru, which is like means to live, and that's a really moving, it's kind of sad but kind of very heartwarming and uplifting movie about a guy that finds out he doesn't have long to live and then figuring out what he wants to do. It's just a really nice story, really good. The actor is Takashi Shimura, I think, and he's really cool as well. Alright, let's move on. Number 2, best director of all time. Second best is, in my opinion, Alfred Hitchcock. So, here, I've got Rear Window. Hitchcock's made so many movies. And they're all kind of similar, often thrillers and often mysteries, often involving like an ordinary guy or person that ends up swept up into these mysteries. But I think it really appeals to our sense of, we sort of want to do, I think everyone has dark thoughts, everyone has some curiosity about death or about murder or about, it's kind of, exotic or romantic or something to think of, what it would it be like to kill someone or to plan a murder and then get away with it. And I think I don't think, I'd say very few people ever want to do that, but we have an interest in it, and we sort of, and watching a movie where someone actually does something, or they think they've uncovered a murder and they're investigating it and they're trying to follow the clues. It's really exciting. You know, like they sneak into someone's house and they're looking to try and find evidence, and someone comes in and they have to hide. And the way Hitchcock is such an expert at suspense and letting us dwell on a certain thing and just have the focus on that and elongating moments. I don't know, I should probably be more specific. Rear Window is a really cool movie. It's got, you get to sort of just watch people voyeuristically, and it's amazing how engaging that is, just seeing these characters that aren't really related to the story at all, but just sort of keep it going. A bit like movies need little moments to the side that just comic relief, or just an establishing shot for a new place. It's just in between, and then there's just, he thinks he sees something, and then he's not sure if he's reading too much into it, is he being too suspicious, but then the movie just gets more and more interesting, and there are moments that are just so full of suspense. There's a part where this often happens. The girl, his friend Grace Kelly, sort of points to something in her hand. If you've seen it, you'll know hopefully what I mean. I think a ring or something. And then it's sort of the zooming thing pans over, and this guy has noticed and looks over, and it's a really scary moment. Yeah, I don't. His filmography is like a list of great movies. There are some exceptions. I've been watching some of his more sort of average movies, but they're still very well made, and you can see where maybe they went wrong, or they're just not as exciting or interesting, but they have those elements. They're still really well made. So something I should have mentioned, like Christopher Nolan partnered with Hans Zimmer, or he has now a few times, and yeah, Hitchcock worked a lot with Bernard Herrmann. That was a really cool partnership, and you know, Vertigo has really great music. And the music's based on Tristan und Isolde by Richard Wagner. How do I describe it? It's got this sort of ambiguity. I'd like to analyze it by itself, but it could be go into a major chord or into a minor chord. So there's this, I think that ambiguity is very useful. That's a really good movie as well, Vertigo, that's more personal, and it's sort of not as much about the mystery itself as about James Stewart, who worked with Hitchcock a number of times. His sort of obsession with someone, with a woman, and the way he feels that he was sort of lied to or manipulated, and the plot sort of becomes second to that feeling. And in a way, that's what all of his movies are kind of like. There's this impetus to find something out. We want to know what's the secret, or will this person survive? Will they end up getting killed or something? That's what we're interested in. Yeah, so he's made so many movies. Rebecca, I saw ages ago. I liked that. Shadow of a Doubt's really good. Strangers on a Train. North by Northwest has some really famous scenes and imagery, and Cary Grant's really funny in it, but then it's also just a really interesting story that keeps going. You don't know where it's going to lead. Rope, I think, is a really like that. I really liked that. That had some parts that just, you know, made my heart slow down, or just the tension, because at the start of that movie you already know what's happened. It's not a spoiler, they've murdered someone, right? And then during the movie they're sort of having a party, and the dead body's there, and it just creates lots of tension, and it's mixed in with comedy. Even another movie is The Trouble with Harry, which is a very like sort of dark comedy or black comedy. It's again, it mixes. I think all of his movies have an element of comedy. It's just not always on the surface. It's not always obvious. Frenzy was a really good movie. Pretty confronting. Torn Curtain has a really well filmed but scary death scene that just makes it feel really real. That's why I made a video about guns. I just think like shooting someone seems much easier than anything involving a knife or some other weapon. Just is scary, and it just seems like it could be hard to kill someone, and just the process, it's scary. I have a hard enough time trying to kill, like some things are easy to kill, but I don't like killing cockroaches and little animals, but at times it can be difficult. Like I'd pick up a cockroach, didn't know it was dead with a tissue, and then I'd be like, oh my god, and then squashing it and just thinking, my god, if it's that hard to kill little animals or little, bugs, how killing a human, like it's scary. But anyway, the point is his movies are really well made and they build up the tension. He has interesting shots and suggests things, and there's people give looks that are suspicious. What was another one? I think I don't know if it's Sabotage. I think it's Saboteur. I think he made a movie called Saboteur and a movie called Sabotage. But it was really good as well, where it just characters keep figuring things out. So you think, that's another thing. A lot of his movies change. At first it starts out as a mystery of who killed this person, or who is the killer. Like Frenzy sort of starts out, I guess, like that. But then it reveals who the killer is, and it's like, whoa, hang on, we know. Much like M does that as well. And then after that, it makes you wonder, so what's the new mystery? And then it becomes more about, is the killer going to get caught? Or is the killer going to kill again? Or that sort of thing. It keeps changing, and then a character figures something out. And now it's not, will the killer get caught? It's, is this person going to survive this confrontation? Is this, I don't know. They just keep going. So anyway, he's a brilliant director. I still have a bunch of, especially his older movies to catch up with. Okay, my number one director of all time. I'll try not to go too long. It's probably obvious to some people. Steven Spielberg. So, I mean, he's made so many famous movies that are just different from each other, but really, really good. Like, I think he's really good at, like, magic, the sense of wonder and adventure and excitement. So Jaws is, really great sort of action adventure horror sort of movie, and it's like a concept. It's very pure. It doesn't get polluted by other things. Close Encounters is a really exciting sort of romantic movie about aliens, actually getting to meet aliens. With the da 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 and the interplay between the humans and the aliens with music. And yeah, again, John Williams and Steven Spielberg have one of the most famous, I think, partnerships in movies. There's many others, but yeah, John Williams has done almost all of his movies, I think, just with a few exceptions where, and unlike other cases where there have been falling outs, I don't think they had a falling out with each other. It was just someone else ended up wanting, I think, Color Purple. This other guy, I forget his name, wanted to do the music, so he did the music instead. Let's see, what else? Raiders of the Lost Ark and the whole Indiana Jones trilogy. Very exciting, cool action adventure where it's just, you don't know what's going to happen next. It just all feels so spontaneous and just so exciting. And just not like flat action sequence or just shooting or just running. It's a combination, first he's got to do this thing, and then there's like arrow shooting, and then there's the boulder, or he'll be trying to get onto a truck, and then he ends up, I don't even know how it happens, but he ends up on the front, he ends up sort of climbing underneath or getting back up, he's on the door, tries to get in, and then, there's so many. In the third one, he's on a tank, and he nearly gets crushed. There's all these cool things that happen. The second one's a bit darker. I remember that really affected me with Temple of Doom. I remember it makes it seem real, so that, gosh, I hope, or I'll have to use that if someone's, I'll just have to push hard enough on their chest that I can reach in and grab their heart. But it's crazy. I think that was one of the first PG-13 movies or something. Another one of my favorite movies of all time is E.T. I just think, and it's got a really, really amazing score. It's just, I don't know what to say. It's very moving, because it's about childhood, about losing your parents, or your parents are divorced, feeling sad or lonely or just needing something, and then, you know, I don't know, you could read it different ways. E.T. is kind of like a savior for Elliot, or gives him something to look forward to or hope for. I don't know, I really like that movie. It's just very exciting, and the way it plays out, and it's all from Elliot's point of view, or from the children's point of view. So there's exaggerated emotions. I don't think the humans are as scary as they act, but it makes them seem very ominous. The scientists and that's the adult world that's just kind of coming in to control things. That's not kind and friendly like E.T. And E.T. is scary at the start, but then they connect and they have that synchronicity. And there's the part where he ends up kissing a girl at school, and there's the frogs that are escaping. There's just moments that are just weird. It's just I really like that movie. It seems very romantic and very personal, and it doesn't have like a standard plot or story. It's just what it feels like to be a kid or to be in that situation. Really good movie, and yeah, great music, and then just amazing magical things like flying through the air like 2 times, and then there's the moon, and I think later it's like with the sunset. And Gertie's really cute, Drew Barrymore, and the older brother I think is really good. Anyway, it's a classic. He's also made Jurassic Park, Minority Report, Catch Me If You Can is a really good movie. There's so many. Munich I think is good. War of the Worlds I think it seems rushed. The ending was very abrupt and unsatisfying. I remember when my family went to watch it at the cinemas, we left, or we were, when the credits were rolling, and there was a guy, I don't know when did he fall asleep, halfway through or just near the end, but he was oblivious to the fact that the movie had finished. Yeah, that was it started really good, but then it was pretty disappointing. Another really big one is Schindler's List, a very mature sort of film that's kind of dark, but deeply moving, and some of the choices he makes, Schindler did not plan in advance. He's not like a hero. That's not his intention. He's I guess a war profiteer. This is obviously during World War II, and the Holocaust is taking place. So it's not many movies have approached that subject that I'm aware of. There probably are quite a lot, but not sort of famous movies. The Pianist is one. I'm not a huge fan of The Pianist, but yeah, the way Schindler does not intend to, but it's like he sort of suddenly realizes he's in a position where he could save some of the Jews or Jewish people, and he just sort of does it. It's like he feels, oh, I have to do this. I don't have a choice. I can't. And he can't believe the evil he's seeing, like with Ralph Fiennes, who's like just pure evil, or just purely does not care at all. So he's like a child, but he enjoys killing humans. I don't know. And I think what works about the movie is so brutally realistic and just depicts things as they were. It doesn't have any too much comment on it. It just is what it is, and you can see this destruction or loss of humanity. And Oskar Schindler, I think the point is, he's not a particularly good person himself. He does sort of bad things. He makes money from people, tries to take advantage of things, but he realizes, like, this is ridiculous, and he just has to do anything he can to keep, I don't know, it's a very moving movie. And then he's sort of trying to, just giving all of his money to get as many Jews as he can. It's a very powerful movie that really affected me. So I don't know, Spielberg just has so many of those, especially those early really magical, exciting movies that they have so many moments and sort of climaxes, and he works really well with John Williams. It's a matter of mutual respect, and Spielberg creates great visuals and really engaging stories, and then Williams is able to make them, huge blockbuster, exciting, movies that really move the audience and take you off, you transported to another place or time or whatever. So anyway, I'll leave it there. I think, yeah, I had a few, what do you call it, honorable mentions. So I do like David Lynch. He makes very weird movies. I didn't even think of him, but he'd be near my top 5. So like, for example, Mulholland Drive is a very weird movie. He seems to divide people a bit, but I really like his stuff. To me, he realizes that film is it's kind of arbitrary. We just see one scene and another scene. It's a lot like a dream, and so many movies just follow rules of exposition, and I think David Lynch realizes this movies are just really about feelings and relationships, and just he likes to play with that a bit and just make crazy things that I think is truer to what movies are meant to be, just surreal experiences. And it's kind of funny how so many movies are so formulaic. So I find his movies a bit more, and maybe they're a little pretentious or a little weird, but I think he really believes in them. I don't think he necessarily thinks there's a lot of meaning, but it feels right to him for some reason. It says something, even if it's not something you can just say, oh, this is what it's about. It doesn't have to be like that. And the last two are Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton, a couple of silent film directors and actors. I really love their stuff. They're hilarious, probably even more so Buster Keaton, but I think they directed their movies as well, so they deserve, it's just, I don't think of them as directors. I think of them as silent film stars or geniuses, or just really cool people. I think Charlie Chaplin even did the music for a lot of his movies. However, I'm not sure if he wrote every note. Maybe he had people help him orchestrate, or I think he borrowed themes from places. So anyway, yeah, I'll leave it there. So I hope you definitely got to check out, especially, I think not everyone knows Kurosawa, Kubrick and Hitchcock. You need to go back and watch a lot of those movies. There's so many really good ones, and if you haven't seen them, you're just not getting the most out of film. I didn't mention Orson Welles. He also, I think, has made some very good movies. I haven't seen that many of his though. Citizen Kane, Touch of Evil or something, and maybe The Magnificent Ambersons. That's about it. So anyway, let me know what you think, if there's a director I missed, or if you think I'm wrong, whatever. I'm open. So, okay, thank you for watching. Bye.